joyful hello to all of you. My name is Minnku Buttar, founder of the Circle of Joy that brings you self-mastery programs and retreats. It gives me great joy to bring to you this season's talk show, a series of interviews on choosing joy, secrets, and stories from all over the world. It is my diligent attempt to show you that joy is not a hockey-pocky, frivolous concept, but a discipline, a way of life much needed. If you want to be resilient, radiant, and unstoppable like a runaway train. So subscribe to my channel so that you can tap into the wisdom of people from all over the world. I will see you there.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 33rd episode of this talk show, Choosing Joy, Secrets and Stories from Around the World. My name is Minnku Buttar, your host from India. And let me start with wishing you all a happy 2023. It's our first episode of this year, and I know that who I wanted as my very special guest speaker for this one, and you will see very soon why. First, the good news. We have doubled our viewership in the last 3 months. So yes, that's a celebration. And I'm so grateful to each one of you who keeps coming back to grow, to listen and heal from the wisdom of my speakers on the 1st and 15th of each month. Well, this holiday season has been about warm, fuzzy feelings of love, of friendship, peace, gratitude, and acceptance. So hopefully, like every year, we shall begin this year with a lot of clarity, a lot of confidence, courage, and the divine gift called grace, which is unseen, but you can feel it. And that is our theme for today. And I, for one, truly believe that grace is that voice that calls us to change and then gives us the power to pull it off. Now, a little bit about my guest speaker today. She is the CEO of Urabe, official, a spirit art medium, spiritual midwife. And that's really what attracted me to her and her persona. She's an abstract artist extraordinaire, BIZCATALYST 360 featured contributor. She has claimed the delicate and the extremely responsible role of being a cosmic energy orchestrator. And I want to know more about this role later. She is passionate. She's passionate about energy, about spiritual growth, freedom, creativity, nature, and about embracing yourself in totality so that you could have healthy relationships. And she truly believes all of planet's diverse cultures have divine gifts to contribute. So we must respect that. And I love this. She says, I'm passionate about you. And if you're brave, come to dance with me. All right, Beth, let's waltz. A warm welcome. And how are you today?
Oh, Minnku, I'm glad I have a tissue prepared because you almost brought me to tears already, and I'm expecting to cry at some point in this conversation. So thank you. Blessings from Arizona, my sister.
Beth, I think we've always connected on another level of vulnerability, and I love how we've been exchanging inspirational messages all of last month. At least I would say 100 of them, and sometimes at odd times of the day and night when we feel very compelled to share cosmic tickles, as we call it. I love that, and I love your exuberance and the positivity. So tell me, you talk about Urabe. What is Urabe? You have it almost like a surname, and then you have a website. What is it, and how has this fascinating spirit art designs come through? Would you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Well, I acquired the surname Urabe in November of 1985. I married a Japanese man, which was how I got the surname Urabe.
Okay.
And one of the very significant things from the start was that my initials before I got married were ERR. My maiden name was Reuben, and my initials made the word ERR, meaning to be mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was actually the core or what I call the original wound. The pain that I carried in my heart was this sense of being mistaken. When I married in Japan and my surname became Urabe, the letters E-R-U are a Japanese verb meaning to receive. And that was exactly the transition that started to happen with this marriage, was that I went into genuine receiving mode. And so from the very beginning, the surname was powerful and significant to me. I'm not still in the relationship with the man who gifted me with that name, but the Japanese characters for the name Urabe mean family of divine origin. And I always knew that that was going to be a very significant part of my path moving forward, especially with the art. And what's happened over the years is that sometimes people are drawn to me because of the art. Sometimes it's because of something I've said or written. And in many cases, they simply hear the name Urabe and the bell that goes off in their heart and says, I am part of this family of divine origin. So it was never just my personal surname as the wife of a Japanese man. I understood that it was the name of my spiritual family, and that when the time was right, we would find each other.
That's amazing. And you and I, we've talked about, thank you for that beautiful article that you shared, where we all lead into finding our tribe sooner or later. And we are light, and we are connected in a way that eventually a soul recognizes a soul. And that's how I've always felt this connection with you. And we've talked about the Lemurians and the Atlantis. There's so much. So I'm just going to today bring it back to, this beautiful spirit art designs. And now I'm fascinated by art because I'm an artist as well. So we connect on that aspect, and we work with, fueling our divine energies. You've got Beth, you've got 800 over empowering product forms. So tell me the narrative behind, how do your designs help with the spiritual processes of awakening? Does it heal? Does it transform? And how is it integrating the energetic patterns that I see and sense and you talk about? What's happening back there?
It's interesting that you brought up the 800 again, because I actually have about 800 original artworks, and I hadn't made that connection before. But 20 years ago, I was living in Japan, and I had been on my spiritual path for 10 years. And on January 1st, in 1995, I started doing a course in recovering and discovering my creativity called The Artist's Way. 1 week after that, I decided, well, I'm being creative. Let's go buy some colored pencils and paper. And I just started doodling. And from the very first colored pencil doodle, Minnku, I could feel that something of cosmic proportions was happening. I went from colored pencils to the design pens very, very quickly. And every single day, I just kept doodling. I love that word, because I have no art training. I'd never wanted to be an artist, but I just started to draw. And by the second month, I was already channeling, and that's the only word I can use. I was already channeling some of my most powerful work 2 months into the process. Now, when you ask about how the art, and by the way, in the first 4 years, I did 350 pieces of art, and every single one was like giving birth to a child. As a mother, you know that if you're having a baby, you can't say, sorry, I'm tired, come back tomorrow. I would literally I would finish a picture and stand and try to look and appreciate it. And I would hear the voices of all the other pictures waiting in line to be birthed through me, arguing about who was going to be next.
Oh my
That's how I did it for 4 years straight. So as far as how the art has the power to awaken, heal, and transform other people, I was 100% surrendered to that process in the birthing of it, and therefore energy that I allowed to come through me in the channeling of each and every picture is now embodied by the colors and the designs in each particular picture. And they're all completely different. And some of them look much more complex than others. Some of them almost look childish, but each one has that perfect energy, and I know you're going to want to get to this, the perfection and the imperfection, but I learned very early on that the perfection had nothing to do with the form. It had to do with the perfection of my surrender to the energy, and understanding that when you're having a baby, you don't put in an order to God, give me blue eyes and brown,
Yes.
you have to love it for what it is. And so in each picture, I was being healed at the most profound level with each picture that I birthed. And I was conscious through that process. So after the fact, here we are almost 3 decades later, but I can go to any picture and tell you what the last dot was that I put onto it when I knew it was complete. And so I can interpret that. I've never said anything about any of the art that turned out to not be 100% correct. I have a relationship with it unlike anything any human being I've ever had in my life. And I literally see them as my spirit children.
That's so incredible. And, I don't know if I've shared this with you in our conversations offline, but I actually went off art. I mean, I still doodle and I dabble. I think for me, the word is dabble because it gives me great joy, and I'm all about joy. But just this expression and this interpretation is amazing. I'm going to have to step back and think about what you've just said after we are done with this interview. But, to look at it as birthing, as giving birth to a creation, a procreation, that I love that interpretation. And you also, as a purpose in life, from what I know of you, what I've read, what we've talked, in this lifetime, you're helping people to understand also through your art and your talks and your expressionism, that perfection, you said, is within endless imperfections of this world, to understand and find perfection within the seamless, endless imperfections. So if I interpret this correct, Beth, are you saying that this understanding that we are perfect as we are, with all our flaws, is available within this innate divinity in the heart and soul, and we don't have to look for it outside? Is that your interpretation?
Ultimately, there is no outside. Everything is within. Perfection, people run into problems because they're looking for perfection in form. Form is inherently imperfect. Form, everything is a form. An emotion is a form, a thought is a form, your car is a form. Forms have a birth and a life and a death. Essence is what's eternal, that the essence, and we're speaking of absolute truth here, not relative truth. If you think of an infinite ocean of consciousness, each human being is like a wave in that ocean of consciousness. And so to speak every word that you speak, or move your hand, or do your art, or whatever you're doing in life, with the conscious awareness that you are simply a wave in that infinite ocean, then you're being the imperfection of that form, which will change, but you're conscious of the underlying perfection that holds all of the waves within its embrace.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean. And no one wave is nearer or further from the ocean, right? Or more wet or less wet.
To surrender, each wave has to be willing to completely, for one moment in time, dissolve into the ocean, so that when it comes, we're speaking metaphorically, and I know it sounds hard to understand, but anybody who's on the verge of that surrender will understand what I'm talking about. The ego, all sense of individuality, needs to be wiped out just for one moment, so that when you come back to be your individual self, you never forget the ocean that is your support. Right now, all those individual waves out there are saying, I want to do it my way. I want to have it all and be it all and do it. Well, sorry, but the ocean might have another plan and you can't stand up against the ocean and win. So it's a divine collaboration between who you are as an individual wave and what the bigger picture is that we can't see.
Yeah, this beautiful, partaking in the collective consciousness is really where the power is together, the inclusivity in the diversity, right? And, just taking it from there, Beth, we've also talked about signs of spirituality and, where humankind is standing at this point of evolution of consciousness, if I can put it like that. How do you propose that one can start this inward journey that allows you to embrace your imperfections and be unified with this one consciousness that we just talked about? How do you propose someone should start this journey? How can they start this journey?
Honestly, I think we're way past the starting point. The people who have been on this path for a long time will resonate with the energy of what you and I are speaking about right now. And they're on the edge of a cliff, knowing that they need to jump and knowing that they will fly, but still holding on to that. But what if it doesn't work out that way? I think the evolution of consciousness has gone way beyond. We're at a point right now where it's do or die. There's no, it doesn't matter if you're 99.9% there. If you're not all in, you're all out. And let me share with you a little, I actually was able to articulate a couple days ago the process that's been going on for me the last 2 months. Since I feel like I've burned up more karmic impressions in the last 2 months than I did in the first 60 years of my life.
Congratulations.
It's all through grace. So it's not something I take credit for, but the image that came to me the other morning when I was talking to somebody who's always really able to bring out the best in me verbally, I said to him, I feel like I'm on a tightrope. Now visualize this with me as I say it. I'm on a tightrope over the Grand Canyon, appropriately. I live in Arizona. I'm on a tightrope over the Grand Canyon, and every single thought that comes through my mind needs to immediately be evaluated. Is this coming from unconditional love or is it rooted in fear?
Yeah.
If it's rooted in fear and I don't drop it immediately, I'm on that tightrope. I'm going to lose my balance and I'm going to tumble into the Grand Canyon. So we're really at a point where it's life or death in the form of the relative. Ultimately there is no death. The wave merges into the ocean, but nothing's died. It just transforms. It changes.
Yeah.
But in the evolution of consciousness right now, each of us is at a point where we really need to be willing to die for truth, for absolute truth. And if we're not, then we're not ready to step into our place, our rightful places as spiritual warriors and do what we came to do, which is usher in a new earth and take humanity to a level of evolution that it's never even come close to touching or seeing before. So to go back to the question, anybody who's really just starting on the path probably won't be around in physical form much longer. They will be taken to the level of consciousness that best suits where they are. And we don't really have time to waste being sad about that, because we can't afford to be sad right now. If you really do understand that there's no such thing as death, but just transformation, then hold fast to what your role is in this unfolding of the cosmic play. Bless the people who are leaving, but keep your focus on not losing your balance and falling into the Grand Canyon.
That's quite, that's conscious bravery, as, some, there's a lot of people in our tribe who talk about bravery and courage and conscious bravery. And I love that concept. I agree with you, Beth, it's not time to sit on the fence. You need to be very clear. This idea of an illusional existence cannot exist. I think in every moment you have to, like you said, put in your 100%, strive to do the best to achieve what you need to achieve as a spiritual warrior, like you call it. And I think if we can also, just to add to that, I think if we can just stay aligned with our emotional self, the subconscious, or I call it the omniscient intelligence, I think whatever we choose to call it, and I think that connection will take you where you're meant to go. But you're right that you have to stay focused. So on that note, I'm just thinking, Beth, maybe we can share some spiritual practices with our audience, because when we look at it, spiritual practices is really what helps consciousness expand and evolve. So if you're okay with sharing, why don't you go first? And I would love our audience to know about your initiations, your sadhana with Indian masters. Look at the bindi, and the way we decided to connect to the Indian ancestry.
It's funny that you brought up the practices because the path that I'm on is very unique in that when you receive initiation, and this was what I was told, actually, I think it's 37 years ago today that I was first in the presence of my spiritual master.
Wow.
And one of the things I remember from the program was hearing, when you're initiated onto this path, every single thing that happens needs to happen. It will happen exactly as it's supposed to, and you don't have to worry about anything. Yeah, right, it took me 37 years to stop worrying, but everything will happen as it's supposed to. And at the program itself, I didn't feel like anything had happened. I went into the program, I came out of it, I didn't feel different. But 13 months later, the mantra that we had been given, the sacred syllables, were suddenly nonstop reverberating inside me. Whatever I was doing, I was breathing in this mantra and I was breathing out this mantra, and I wasn't doing it. It was just like the breath. It happened organically. And one of the expectations that I'd had was that if I was initiated, I was going to start waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to meditate the way everybody else did, and I was going to chant. And I had this big mental list of how it would happen if I was doing it right, because I was afraid of doing it wrong.
Right.
Well, none of that happened in the way that I expected it to, but because I was totally surrendered to my path and I knew it, I just kept watching and I kept waiting. And I have always loved to walk. Walking since I was 20 years old. So for 40 years, I've walked an average of 5 or 6 miles every single day, power walking. And one day I'm in Japan and I've been on the path for 2 or 3 years, and I'm out for my 7-mile walk. And all of a sudden it dawns on me that when I'm walking, I am in the absolute highest state of meditation. And that set me free to really understand that my path would be totally unique in a way that was tailor fit for me. And it didn't have to look like anybody else's. And, it's not that instantaneously I stopped the self-judgment of thinking I was doing it right or wrong, but to understand that walking meditation was the way that I most directly plug into the energy of the universe and get my answers was one of the most liberating things that ever happened to me. So I have never had a sitting meditation practice. I've never done the same things at the same time every day. What I've always done is tried to follow the energy moment to moment and do what I was being asked to do. And obviously my ability to do that now, 37 years later, is infinitely more powerful and more honed than it was, but that's because it's time. It boils down to right time. So I can't really share any practices that I wouldn't advise anybody to do anything in particular. What I would invite them to do is really ask themselves, when am I most comfortable in my own skin? Forget what everybody else is doing. Maybe you're happy baking cupcakes. Maybe that's when your spiritual energy is at its most powerful, when you're baking cupcakes. Let it be okay. The art of living is in being the unique snowflake that you are, different from everybody else, but again, the exact same essence. Wow. So if I answered your question about practices, there is one that I do on a daily basis now. It's a Sanskrit chant called the Guru Gita. But if I miss it, I don't feel guilty. Just the day where I can't do it. You have to do what's organically right and natural to you. And that's what your path is, even if it's baking cupcakes.
But I completely resonate with what you're saying. In India, you grow up with very set of conditioning saying you've got to sit cross-legged and you've got to do meditation at a particular time and you've got to shower before you enter the puja room. At the end of the day, these are the conditioning. And when you come into, say, prayer mode, when you are one with your divine energy, all of this falls off.
Exactly.
So very briefly to share my spiritual practice, I do a heartfulness meditation by Daji. He's one of the sweetest evolved master here. And it involves drawing attention to your heart because of maybe a lot of traumas earlier in my life, I had to connect with my heartfulness. So, and this was absolutely something I connected with. And so when I meditate, I just feel and concentrate on the presence of the divine light in my heart. And you and I have talked about how we can receive transmissions, right? During, this mode of when you're connected and you get answers and you're being guided. In India, we call this pranahuti. The word is pranahuti. And I have actually find that your impressions, or what we call our samskaras, you actually start getting guided, and you slowly get rid of your cognitive biases. And I think this is what I call grace. When you receive what you ask for, and you're not talking about material goods, right? You're talking about receiving grace, the unseen hand. How has grace, how have you felt it, Beth? In what presence does grace have in your life? How are you feeling about grace?
Grace is everything. The master, the word guru, which is so misunderstood in this country, the word guru comes from, as I'm sure you know, the two Sanskrit syllables, gu, which means darkness, and ru, which means light. The guru is not a human being. The guru is the light of pure consciousness within the heart and being of each and every person. And when, for whatever mysterious reason, a soul is ready to devote their life to truth and to freedom, not to chasing after the materialistic bullshit, pardon the French, that everybody's so busy chasing after. When you're ready to really devote your life to God, grace enters in the way that's right for you, and it permeates absolutely everything. Grace is that ocean of consciousness that's there, whether you're crying or laughing, whether you're sleeping or awake. It's that all-pervasive awareness that everything at the core is part of the divine, and it doesn't matter what form it takes. It could be the most horrifically, just look at our world, but there is grace in our world right now. If you look, if you're willing to look, you can see it, you can find it, you can experience it, and you can unite your heart with the grace at the center. Yes, you have to see through an awful lot of incredibly painful illusions and most of the planet in suffering, but that's what makes you strong enough to be the warrior of light that you're here to be. So the word grace to me is grace, and the word guru in the way that I just explained it. It's the light of consciousness within you, and grace is what allows you to move through your life, not looking for the answers from any person or any book or any formal teaching, but always to trust the beating of your own heart as it tells you, this is what's right for me. It might not be right for somebody else. It probably won't. But this is what's right for me, and I'm going to follow it. The invisible thread that runs through every experience, every thought, every feeling, that's grace. And it's true. You will burn, and it will raise you to the ground. RAZE. Let it, because you'll emerge being who you were supposed to be in this lifetime. One of my most sacred words, grace. Yeah.
Oh, that is so beautiful, Beth. I mean, I hear you speak, and this relentless pursuit. No, just let me rephrase. It's not even a pursuit. It is just something, being one with your vibration, and you want it so bad because, there's this incident, and it's a true story with Ramana Maharishi, and they were, he was with one of his disciples, and they were at the riverbank, and the disciple asked him, he says, how badly should we want this? Like what you talk about, ready to be burnt and raised. And the guru said, guru, the dispeller of darkness, right? Guru, he actually just held the head of the disciple and ducked him into the water, the river. And when, he was fumbling to come out for a breath of air, and he said, this is how bad you should want it.
How badly do you need air when you're drowning? That's exactly right.
When you want that one breath, and that's how bad you should want this merging of the light that you always were You know, it reminds me of your beautiful article today, Beth, about your goddess Kuan Yin. Uh, it was today, right? Your art.
Yesterday, yes, and I
Yeah,
love
yeah. Uh,
Onion.
and you have one in solid jade, and I'm very intrigued with this. You know what you said. She had a plaque at the feet which says she sacrifices her own enlightenment in order to lead others to it. That is beautiful. And you talked about liminal. What was that? You talked about liminal. What does that stand for? Did you find out?
Yeah, when I write poetry, just like with channeling the art, when I write poetry, I'm very aware that I'm birthing in word form the
Yeah.
same energy.
Right. Hello, did I lose you? Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I think I lost your I think I lost your voice. I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I think that was a cosmic blurb. And now we're back. We're back.
To keep the perfection going.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Now
Yes, we were talking about the birthing of words through you.
Oh, yes. So there'll be times when I write a poem and I will be guided to use a word that I have to go Google because I don't even really know what it means. And then I'll come back and I'll go, oh my God, I used it exactly perfectly in the context of the poem. Well, the
Right.
word liminal is like that. And Kuan Yin is she's the goddess of compassion. And compassion is ultimately, like the plaque said, it's that willingness to be here in physical form in this reality, not for your own personal wants and desires, but only to be such a pure vessel that moment to moment you can be of service. Well, the word, you know, the word subliminal, right? Below
Yes.
the surface. To me, liminal means the willingness to be in pain, to feel what humanity is going through, to throw myself in the fire and burn, even if as an individual, I evolved beyond that point. I am here consciously by choice to be a servant in order to help raise other people to that level. So I'm the goddess of compassion is how did I phrase it? Oh, that she's compassion incarnate. Kuan Yin is compassion incarnate. She's willing to be liminal, even though she's experienced what it is to be absolute, only for the purpose of helping other people arrive at that same place. So I think each of us really needs to understand that it has nothing to do with what I want. It's not me as an individual. It's what does the source, God, Allah, it doesn't matter what you call it, Rama, they're all different names for the same one source. What does it want to do through me? What does it want to give the world through me? And moment by moment, depending on our egoic impressions, we might be asked to do things that scare us so much that we're brought to our knees. Expect that. But that's the moment where you have the choice to actually be a part of evolution by saying, I'm not going to fall back into that karmic impression way of doing things. I'm going to let the divine speak through me the way it wants to. I'm not going to claim it as my success. I'm not going to beat myself up for having done it wrong. I'm just going to be a pure vessel. So yes, Kuan Yin is she's one of my most, it was like I said, I dissolved into tears because to read that plaque that said she sacrifices her own enlightenment in order to lead others to it. That's the way I'd always felt. I just never had the words to express it. And that was when I really started letting go of all of the expectations that I had about myself and my life to be a certain way. And just the prayer was, you know, I will to will, thy will. God, use me as you know I need to be used, not as I might think I need to be.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think you have to fall into your purpose. And I don't think this time in the universe, Beth, is time for selfishness. It's not the time for fear. If it means making sacrifices, it means letting go of things that are toxic. It's time to do it. It's time to hold the bull by its horn. There's absolutely, and the universe, the cosmic, if you read about it, the 24 hours have become 12. So it's also the time in the universe that we have to be very careful about what we think, because manifestations are also happening that fast. So I think our thought processes are extremely, extremely important. My last question to you before we move on to the rapid fire round, which is the fun round where you can be quirky, you can be spontaneous, and we usually one word or one sentence. I would like our audience to know a little bit more about this beautiful, interesting sanctuary that you have that, in Arizona. We talked about it, Beth, and I'm fascinated by the idea of those zillion midnight blue stargazing and those deck of yours in the conversations about absolute truth. So tell me, how does someone get in touch with you to be invited there? Is it open to someone who would like to come and merge and discover and awaken?
Well, I do have an Airbnb listing. It's been on for 4.5 years, but interestingly, Minnku, in the
Okay, we're having another blow up.
ex-husband, and I'm gonna beat his head.
I
do.
just so Beth, I'm just going to ask you to repeat just the last because that's important for our audience. I want them to be able to find you. So if you could just repeat, because we lost you there in the last two sentences.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. I do have an Airbnb listing with the retreat on it, but for the last 8 months or so, I've gotten almost no guests, and I think that's honestly because the energy here has gotten so strong that it's not for the average person. So if there are people on LinkedIn from BIZCATALYST, from our tribe, who resonate with the conversation that we're having, or who have seen the art, who feel like they would like to come to the mountain, just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message, and I will give you the details. One of the things that you and I talked about was that video, The Gathering of the Tribe, and that as our tribe finds each other all over the globe, what will really bring in the energy much, much more powerfully is when we meet in person, face to face, not just through a Zoom telephone or a laptop, but actually meet in person. And I absolutely know that this mountaintop retreat is one of the physical locations, one of the most powerful energy vortexes on the planet, and one of the places where our tribe will meet in person when we're really ready to raise the vibration quantitatively and qualitatively beyond anything that our minds can imagine. So anybody who feels drawn to come to the mountain, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and it will be immediately obvious if this is something that you're supposed to do.
You actually gravitate to that energy or not. And you're right, only if you're ready to receive, and you can hack it, really, because not everyone can take such heightened energy. And it's funny about energy, it just doesn't allow you to reach there. If you're not ready and prepared for all that's going to come your way, because things happen when you are, completely in sync with the right energy. You have to be prepared for anything to open up, your Sahasrara chakra, your connect with the divine. And that can be a little scary for some people. So I will definitely be there, Beth, at some point next year. And when I'm coming, I'm just going to give a shout out to our tribe. And let's see. I mean, I can just imagine all of us holding hands and sitting on the deck and looking at the stars and connecting with what will be. So
when you said that right now, there's a Native American. They make these round, like 5 or 6 or 7 figures sitting in a circle holding hands. I have many stone. That's exactly what I just saw when you said that about, absolutely.
I see that. I see that in my inner scene completely. So we will make that happen. So thank you so much, Beth. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and for, uplifting in your own way, and your focus and relentless warrior approach in life. So if you are ready, I'd like to take this episode to the rapid fire round. So are you good to go with the first question?
I'm good to go.
Okay, so well, let's be a little playful to start with. The first question coming your way, Beth, if oranges were not orange in color, what color would you want them to be?
Yellow, because yellow is the color of love in Native American color interpretation.
Ah, okay,
That was
well, yeah. So you sure you're not talking about lemons? You would like your orange yellow.
well, turn lemons into a lemonade, right? But no, yellow is the color of love, and I have very strong ties to the Native American spirit, especially living here the
Yeah,
way I do. So yeah.
right, right. I love that. Okay, what are we all so afraid of, humans, according to you?
What are we so afraid of? We're afraid that we successfully separated from God. That's what the original wound is. That ego is the belief that we were successful in separating ourselves from God. Every other fear comes from that same fear. And that's why it's so crucial right now that each of us be honest with ourselves about what our original wound is and let the band-aids be torn off and let it be healed at the root, because otherwise there will continue to be a million different forms of fear that will pop up. You know, when I say original wound, some of the most common ones are abandonment. In my case, it was being wrong and not being able to trust myself, the sense of not being worthy. But yes, all fear stems from the belief that we have successfully separated ourselves from God and that love is not there anymore. All you have to do is open your eyes, Minnku, and the love is everywhere all the time. Even if you're in the zone, the love is everywhere because it never went anywhere. You just put a form in the way that was preventing you from receiving it.
Absolutely, Beth. And as you say this, I mean, I feel it in my pore. And there's so many times I walk on a road and I'm smiling. And all of a sudden I check myself and I go like, yeah, people are just going to think this is a wacko woman and something's off. But a smile and the joy and the singing in the heart comes out of nowhere. And I think that's grace, and that's feeling a universal love that you're tapping into, and you're just so happy. And it's almost as if sometimes when people are loving, you see their aura and you literally want to spend time with them. So it's so beautiful. Beth, what does listening to your soul mean to you?
Listening to my soul means I use the phrase orders from headquarters, OFH. I will feel the energy move inside, and to listen to my soul means to be willing to act without listening to the voice that's immediately going to jump in and tell me why I can't do it. It's receiving it at the energy level and being willing to act without diluting it, without trying to talk myself out of it, but just trusting so completely that I can act from what I feel in that moment, just like I'm trying to do right now in this conversation, but I've done it in some very big physical ways.
Right.
But it's interesting. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, when I look at this, our rapid fire round could actually become a whole session. I could actually take all these questions, and there comes our next episode with you. So, Beth, what's the most sensible thing you've heard recently? To you?
Most sensible I've heard recently.
Sensible.
Boy.
What appealed to you that someone might have said recently? Does something come to your mind you want to share?
No, honestly, because I try not to hang on to words, because if you hang on to words, you're losing the essence of the energy. It's actually interesting that you said that, because one of the things I would have wanted to encourage listeners of your show to do is, don't worry if I've said anything or if you said anything, if we've brought something out in each other that resonates powerfully, don't try to remember the words. Life isn't about having a recipe. Hold the feeling that the energy brings in your body and return to that. The words are just forms. They're part of the imperfection. They're going to die. The energy that it inspires in you is what you need to return to and continually act and speak from. So no, there aren't any words that I've heard that I would want to hang on to, because I want all the words to fall away so that I can just be pure love.
I love that. I think that's probably why, I get inspired to ask these different questions to different speakers. And I almost feel like everything that I picked up for you today is almost to dissipate what should not be there. You know, it's
Exactly.
you bring it back. You know, the truth comes back home. And with that, thank you, Beth. That's a wrap. And how does it feel to be here and at the end of this interview today?
It's absolutely amazing, and it feels wonderful to have had my ex-husband try twice to call in the middle of this conversation.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. So he's absolutely tuned in to the fact that you were mentioning the beautiful time you've had in Japan with him. Absolutely. He's feeling it. So, Beth, that's a wrap. And, you know, join me. Thank you so much for your wisdom once again. And join me to wish our beautiful global audience a happy 2023. Yay.
23, big hugs, big hugs.
Yes, and wishing you all beautiful listeners a beautiful journey of love, light, and joy. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so, and love you for your unconditional love and support. So bye from now, from me and Beth. Bye. Namaste.
Okay.